Welcome to the Squared Circle Pit with your host, Rob Pasbani.
Now entering the Squared Circle Pit, he is the frontman of the Red Chord and sometimes possibly confused for a wrestler himself based on your stature and your appearance. Guy Kozowyk. Thank you, Guy, for entering the pit.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's really exciting to talk to you, Guy. We've obviously talked plenty of times in the past under different contexts. But I think actually when I was doing Metal Injection, you were maybe the first person that I ever talked to in the scene that liked pro wrestling. Because I feel around 2005, it kind of wasn't cool again. Nobody would really admit to liking it. And you were the only one that I knew that were into it. So I'm curious, when did your fandom of pro wrestling start? What's your earliest pro wrestling memory?
So when I was a kid, I remember kind of bonding with like my dad, like letting us stay up late and watch a lot of like the Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, like, George the Animal Steel, like all that sort of like early, like late 80s era, like age appropriate interests when I was, so I was born in 1980, so it was like the late 80s and stuff like was probably the highlight for me. Now the interesting thing was that so my youngest brother is 8 years younger than me. So when I started getting to be like old enough to drive, 16, 18, stuff like that, so he would have been like 8 or 10. I started like taking like he and I were bonding over it. So at kind of the highlight of Stone Cold and The Rock and stuff, like it would just be like, hey mom, I'm gonna take Michael with me and we're gonna go to see like the live performance of like Monday Night Raw or something like that. So I got like an extra push there as far as my interest in it because my little brother was so into it.
Oh, that's really cool. So you got into it as a kid. I'm guessing a Saturday night's main event is what you're talking about, like the late night Saturday shows with Hogan and Andre the Giant. And then you kind of like it stopped being cool in the mid 90s again. You fell out, I'm sure. And then your brother got you back into it in the late 90s when it was cool again. Is that a fair timeline?
Basically late 90s and stuff like that was just my connection where it would be like, we'd be pulling out the like the N64 and playing the wrestling video games together and going to the live stuff. But in the late 80s, like I remember that was like one of those things where like you got to stay up real late. And so I'm like a little kid and my dad's making me real upset because he's rooting for the bad guy and I'm rooting for the good guy. And he's, oh yeah, I hope Hogan gets killed. It's like, just remember being like all traumatized, being like, no, just doing whatever. And it was kind of funny because when I was a little kid, just like any other hyperactive little kid, there's certain things that would like set me off and just like I'd be just going completely ballistic. And I remember my mom was like trying to like ban certain things in the house. So Captain Caveman, the cartoon, and Ultimate Warrior for a while, she was like, I'd get so excited when the Ultimate Warrior would run out. I'd be like running around hitting things with a wiffle ball bat. She's like, that's it, guy. It's done. No more Ultimate Warrior. And I would do the same thing with the Captain Caveman cartoon. And it would just be like, no more Captain Caveman. Shut it off. But I just remember that being like, ah.
So at WrestleMania 6, you were rooting for Warrior to beat Hulk Hogan. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody, like all the kids were conflicted as to like what was going on because, you're just like, oh, like these are both our heroes. But yeah, probably more Warrior. There was something weird about the face paint and the streamers and stuff. And it was just like, yeah, I want to wrap myself in streamers and paint my face and be a little Warrior.
Yeah, it was kind of like more rock oriented than Hogan, who was like kind of an old man at the time. Like, but I was still a Hogan kid. I was very sad when Hogan lost at WrestleMania 6. Like, I went into like a denial about it. Like, oh, he didn't really get pinned until the television came out the following weeks, and it's like, okay, he's not champion or whatever. Yeah. But so So you got into wrestling as a kid. When did you get into rock and like hardcore? Did that come later?
I got into like really into just music in general, probably the end of middle school. So right as I was entering high school, like 12, 13 years old. I had some friends that exposed me to like a lot of like kind of grunge music and like getting into Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. And there was this like super fast escalation. It was like going over like the grunge stuff and like Rage Against the Machine and all that sort of like more rudimentary, like, oh, okay, this is like kind of on like the underground like rock radio or whatever. To I somehow discovered like Anthrax, Pantera, and Napalm Death like in a very short period of time. And it was like not long after that, it was like on to like Suffocation and all these other much more extreme bands. But like that was like teetering, like,
did somebody expose you to the underground stuff? Like, how did you delve deeper past like the stuff that you would see on TV?
So every once in a while there'd be like a medley of stuff that you'd encounter at like concerts and stuff. My friend's dad used to take us to see some of these bands like when I was probably like a freshman in high school. And one of the big things I think about that was like a huge influence was like, even like soundtracks, like when you think of like the Crow soundtrack or something like that's sort of like mixed, or like like the Judgment Night soundtrack or something like that, where you get into one thing and next thing you know, like just that it's like that compilation mentality. Like comps used to be just like a great way, or like I don't know if it was Roadrunner or if it was like CMJ or whatever. They did those HUH compilations, or like Earache did these like crazy like Earache My Eye samplers and stuff. And it's like you get into one thing, or you get like and it would just have everything from like, okay, well, there's one thing that I sort of know, and now I'll spend the $4, and now I love the most extreme aspect of it.
Yeah, I guess you were at a point in your fandom where you were hungry to consume as much as you could. So it did, like, you were willing to sift through stuff you didn't like to find something that you might like.
Yeah, and I mean, and like one of the other interesting avenues at that point was like Headbangers Ball. Like you'd stay up real late. And it was like the mix of, okay, you're gonna get the Pantera and the Danzig, and then you're also gonna get like the more underground, the Morbid Angels and the Crowbars, or even at that era, like Beavis and Butthead like had that real influential. They're gonna play the videos in the background, and then just next thing you know, you're in Newbury Comics, like buying albums that you found out about through Beavis and Butthead at that point, like Guar.
Yeah. Right, yeah, and even Napalm Death was on there, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about Napalm Death being on there. I can't remember how I came across Napalm Death originally, but I bought Sound of White Noise by Anthrax and like Napalm Death's like Scum at Strawberry Records up this way, like in the same like weekend. And at that point, like I remember like early on in my metal stuff, like Vulgar Far Beyond Driven had come out, and like Pantera already had like a catalog that you could just, at that point, you could just keep going and buying new records. Like, so I got into them at like, Far Beyond Driven, and then it was like, oh, Vulgar Display of Power and Cowboys from Hell. Like, you just keep digging, and then you could read their thank you lists and just find out all these other bands that they liked. And oh, Crowbar. Like, I'm gonna just buy everything that's in the Pantera thank you list.
Yeah, that's a good way. Like it wasn't as easy back then because there wasn't an internet to like kind of tell you what to do. So you really had to do your work. You had to put in the work to find new stuff.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the Attitude Era now. You're getting back into wrestling with your brother. I imagine it's much more fun because like I remember I got all of my best friends into wrestling around that time too, just because they had to, like, I'm like, okay, if you want to hang out, we got to watch this. And they were like, all right, this is fun. Yeah. So we all had our guys. I was an Austin guy. Were you an Austin guy or a Rock guy?
Initially at the time, I was probably more an Austin guy. Over time, I think The Rock is like one of the greatest of all times, just in terms of his promos and banter, and some of the stuff that's come out of The Rock's mouth is just complete gold. Like, and to this day, every once in a while I'll see some like attempt to like go back and like quote like cancel The Rock for saying something like outlandish way back then, and it hasn't really caught it has never really gained any traction because it was always so damn funny. Like, it's just, I mean, that guy is completely hilarious and he's super talented, and it makes sense that like he's just like one of the the biggest stars in the world, period, because besides being a great wrestler, and even just watching him, like when he was like Rocky Maivia or whatever they were calling him, like way back when, Nation of Domination, and basically The Rock got better as he lost his hair. The less hair he has on his head, the better the better he got.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Hollywood Rock thing that he did when he came back already after he was famous, and he did more of the heel run, and it was interesting how he was just kind of mocking the audience and like mocking Hulk Hogan, and they had that thing. There was a lot of fun. It was a great few years of entertainment, I would say. There was a lot in there.
I looked so forward to those promos where he would just mock everybody, the fans, the other wrestlers. There's a couple things that like I just always think of with him, where he was like going off on everyone. He mentioned like he was doing impersonations of Rikishi. And he's like, do it for The Rock, like, or whatever the hell. I remember just being like, and then he was doing impersonations of The Undertaker, like rolling his eyes in the back of the head. And he said something like, die, die, die. And like, just, it was incredible. And it's just like, to this day, like from then to now, I still think about that and like chuckle periodically.
This was in the build up to Armageddon because they were all in a Hell in a Cell match together. It was Rikishi, Undertaker, Rock, Triple H, Steve Austin, and Kurt Angle, which is kind of a crazy lineup of people.
Yeah. I remember he did that, like, you're all knowing your mouth, shut it. He said like, he said something to Rikishi about like, shut your mouth, you thong wearing fatty. And I like just was like, just completely lost my mind. And it's like, when you think of like the stuff that was coming out of his mouth, like at that stage, and the fact that it was just on like regular television, and like I'm like looking over at like my like 11-year-old brother or something at the time, being like, oh, mom's gonna kill me.
Yeah, like what are you exposing like your kid brother to? Yeah.
Yeah, it's part like because 100%, like it's not even like flip a coin, he's going to go to school and he's going to say this in front of the teacher. No, 100% chance he's going to go to school in elementary or middle school, and he's going to repeat this, and it's going to be, where did you get this? Oh, guy brought me, guy was playing it on TV for me. Mom's going to kill me. Yeah.
Did you only watch WWF at the time, or were you also into WCW?
So he was into WCW. So we used to just kind of, and we used to like play some of like the wrestling games on like the N64. So it was like, we definitely had a little bit of that.
Okay. But you were more of a WWF guy, it sounds like. You were
definitely more of a WWF.
So other than the top guys, like I always feel like there's guys in the middle that you always connect to. Who were like some of the lesser known wrestlers that were like your guys?
Well, so when I was in high school, Coach Bloom, Prince Albert, he was the football coach at Revere High.
Oh,
so
wow.
We were always like really rooting for Coach Bloom. Just because,
so did he leave? Did he leave the job to be a wrestler full time, or did he still do it?
Yeah. So he was So that I would have graduated in '98, and he had just got like, he was like in the process of being picked up, and like he is like, it's weird because when you think of it, it's like, all right, oh yeah, there's bigger dudes, there's great Khali and all this other stuff, or Kane. That guy is massive. And I remember him being like in the Revere High gym, and he was like messing with some of the football players, and he was like doing like body slams and stuff with some of the guys that he had coached. And I just remember being like, this guy can't lose. He's enormous. And then, so just like any of the local people, like you're automatically rooting for. And when the Red Chord was over in Japan at one point, we were like on our flight back, and we ran into him at the airport, and I was just like, "Hey,"
Did he remember you?
I'm just no. But I mean, I was like, "Hey, yeah, you were the football coach." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool." Like I wouldn't expect that. I wasn't on the football team or anything.
I see.
There was no way that you could forget this guy just because. I mean,
He's so visible.
He's Prince Albert. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't have like all the piercings and all that stuff. At that point, he was just this massive, massive dude. Trying to think like in terms of who else like for underground favorites.
Were you into the Hardys or Edge and Christian or the Dudleys? Which of the three?
So yeah, I like the Dudleys. I like the Bushwhackers probably more in that era.
Nice.
The Dudleys and all that ECW stuff, which I mean, I was aware of it. Towards the tail end of Red Chord, I ended up like having a job as like an artist rep for a merchandise company, and I had picked up online merch rights for Tommy Dreamer, and
shit.
and I did like an online store for Iron Sheik for a moment. And but like so I was like I definitely always liked like the ECW stuff and just it was like ECW on one side in like the earliest the earliest like MMA like those like open class like free for all battles where people were just like getting killed. There was definitely a fascination with with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And you said you went to shows live. Did you go to like the Garden or like was it house shows? Do you remember what you saw live?
Yeah, so I definitely when they would come through the Boston area, like they'd have the stuff at the Boston Garden, and like I'd taken my brother to that a couple times. I've definitely gone to some weird rando like underground promotion stuff just over time. Like I remember there was some of the kids in my high school like had it's kind of like the monkey see monkey do jack like don't do this at home like jackass stuff where like we had a bunch of kids that were like getting into like the extreme backyard wrestling and stuff, and people would end up with like broken bones and I remember like going to some of these like promotions. Oh yeah, you gotta come and see this guy that the wrestling world always reminded me a lot of like the underground touring type stuff where these poor guys are coming to like play to nobody and just totally destroy their body in some like auditorium or Legion Hall.
Yeah, it's the same struggle.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like, do you think maybe you picked up something from wrestling with your on stage banter? Because I feel you kind of take on this persona of hardcore frontman when you're on stage.
Yeah.
Like you're cutting promos, kind of, right?
That was more so when we started playing bigger shows. That came out a lot more because I just thought it was like just so funny and goofy, and like when we were playing like these floor shows at different halls and houses and stuff, there was definitely like a component of like I got the mic, I'm gonna make the angry face, and then when we actually got on stage, there's like you have to kind of act the part, and I took a lot of influence from pro wrestling in that regard, where it's like, okay, like you just I'm up here, I'm like the boss or the bad guy, or like you have to like portray this like image, because everything up to that point before we started playing on like stages and stuff had been the idea of like, oh, we're playing on the shore, the playing on the floor, it's hardcore, everyone's equal, and then all of a sudden you play these like festivals where you have to like almost like reprogram yourself to, all right, we're going up there, and it was never about the separation between the band and the crowd, because we would have like played with no barricade and played on the floor at like Ozfest if we played right on the ground if we could have, but you're just kind of playing a part at that point where it's like, all right, yeah, cool, while I'm up here for the 20 minutes I'm just going to act like a complete barbarian, and then I'll go back to be a normal guy like when the show's over.
Yeah, one of my favorite gags, I believe it was at a Worcester Metal Fest, where in the breakdown of every song, you would just scream out, "This is your last chance to dance!" like
You
10
never
times.
know. You never know. Yeah. There was like for a while, like I just tried to like just come up with new stuff all the time, and just like whatever. Like I remember like my bandmates kind of cringing a little bit because I didn't know what I was going to say. They didn't know what I was going to say. Like it's just like I hope there's no camera phones here because I don't know what exactly is going to come out of my mouth, and if it's going to get me in a lot of trouble later.
Also, I remember you having very strong opinions about John Cena because he was doing like a thug character, like he had his thug life gimmick, and he's from which is so funny to say now, but like he was from West Newbury, Massachusetts, which I hear is not a very
West
thug.
Newbury is beautiful. Like it is
Yes.
a beautiful place to live and be from. And so I didn't like the original John Cena, like when he basically came out as like the steroid version of like Fred Durst. And I couldn't get past that. And I'm just like, dude, this is the representation of like the Boston area. And I've come full circle, like, where I love John Cena now, both like when he did that what's the Peacemaker?
Yeah.
I think he's hilarious and I fully back him now, but I hated his early character and the way that they like rolled him out with like, his initial like beef with Kurt Angle and all that stuff. I was just like, it was very like cringy if that's appropriate there.
That's appropriate, sure.
Yeah, it was like I just would shudder a little bit, like when he would come out and like do his like, I'm gonna make a rap song for you. I wonder if I go back and like rewatch that stuff, if it would be more humorous. Because like then like when you watched, I remember I had an ex that was into when he was doing that, like he was like on the sidelines of that like reality show there with his girlfriend or
Yeah, Total Bellas. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. I remember like seeing him in that and being like, okay, he seems like a real stand-up, normal, kind of down-to-earth dude. Where did that whole character come from? Like, who thought this was a good idea?
Well, it was also 20 years later and a lot of millions of dollars later that mellowed him out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm a fan of John Cena, the actor, not so much the wrestler. I never really got into like I just never liked I never liked him, and I know I might sound like a hater now, but it's just I don't get it. And like he went away, and now he's back, and like everyone's like, "Oh no, everyone was wrong on him. He was great." Like, no one was wrong.
Well, so John Cena and The Rock both have an interesting thing in common, where they look awesome when they're getting beat up. The way that they sell their actual beatings is pretty like memorable. Like where someone will be wailing on John Cena and they're like, he just like extra hands it up and it's like, they bounce him off the ring and then he like springs up and like, but he looks ridiculous and amazing as he's like taking a beating. And but yeah,
But I think that's a fair assessment. He did make it really easy to root against him. Like I was always rooting for the other guy. So there's something there. Were you watching when CM Punk was around, or was that kind of when you were getting out of it?
I was never a big CM Punk fan.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
I knew that he was. I knew that he was like selling this whole like straight edge and thing, and I just instinctively, as soon as somebody is like doing like, okay, like now all of a sudden I know like AEW has like a bunch of like hardcore crossover. Like I'm always rooting for the guy that's coming from the scene and hoping that like good things happen. I remember there just being like a weirdness with CM Punk where it was like, if he loses this match, he has to drink a beer or something like that. Some like weird thing like that. Like, and I remember being like, dude, this is trying, but
right. You didn't want the sacredness of the scene to be insulted with pro wrestling, is what you're.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it was like there was enough other stuff to make fun of the scene about, where it was just like, but oh yeah, I'm a wrestler and I'm straight edge. Like he was like, okay, like that's the best gimmick that you have. Like, oh, okay.
That's just him, he would say. That's not a gimmick. It's just him.
Oh yeah, good for him. And oh yeah, and like obviously like I mean I always liked it when like Sandman would come out and it would just be like he is the antithesis of that. Like and he's just abusing his body and drinking and it's just like, okay, this guy's gonna fall off of the balcony and beer is gonna make him stronger.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, you mentioned AEW. Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I always root for Andy Williams. He plays the Butcher, just because it's like, holy shit, that's Andy Williams. He's wrestling. He's living his dream. I saw him wrestle in like a high school gym like 7 years ago, and even that I was like, wow, he's doing it. Like at that point, I was like so happy for him that he was just doing that. But now to be on TV and everything, that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember. Andy and I we were on a tour together and I want to say it might have been the High on Fire tour like in like 2005 and we ended up in Salt Lake. We went to work out at a gym with the singer from Gaza and it was just like we were just all about like just any chance that you could like get into a real gym situation. And like I was just thinking about that because at the time, like he was doing all this stuff, and I was like, "This is a big dude," you know. Like that was something that you didn't see as much of in that touring music scene because it was like, all right, well, I'm away from the gym, and like he was just always just a massive guy. We used to play with Every Time I Die so much, like just back in the day. Like there's definitely some like old like Red Chord and Every Time I Die from like CBGBs and stuff. And like, I think we're probably about the same age. So we might have been like 21, 22, like early era. And I just remember like working out with him on that tour a couple times and just be like, this dude is massive. Like he's massive. He should be doing something like this. And then years later, when I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, I wish I had done stuff like this when I was younger, and I'm probably too old for it. And then I'm like looking over, and they're like, "Oh, Andy's starting his career," and awesome, good for him, man.
Yeah, and he did it. So do you? I mean, you're a busy guy now, and you're an adult, and I'm sure you have adult responsibilities. But do you follow wrestling at all now? Like, what's your level of fandom at the moment?
Very, very little. I see like I got rid of cable and stuff just. And I'll see random matches here and there on of whatever's going on, just like in passing on like reels and
I see.
So yeah, very very little interaction. I love the fact that there's a couple of these dudes like the God's Hate guy that's doing stuff, and I every once in a while someone will like, yeah. So he's awesome, and yeah, I definitely like. When I find out that there's dudes that are crossing over with metal, I tend to look it up. I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm rooting for him. I'm not watching him on TV, but I am rooting for him. I hope that.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I have like a bigger kinship towards those guys because it's like, because they're representing the scene in a way in this larger universe.
Sure.
Yeah. Speaking of representing the scene, it was great to see the Red Chord play last year at the Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. It was very exciting.
Thank you.
To see you guys perform
exciting
live.
For us too.
Yeah. I know
that Philly show was the longest I'd ever gone without performing like publicly. Like it was kind of weird because we had played some shows in 2015 and then it just I don't know where time went, but it was like 7 years from like then until like the 2022 Decibel show there. It was just
That's
like
crazy,
I remember like scratching my head a little bit, being like, "Oh, I didn't like sing for most of years."
Yeah,
it was like nerve-wracking as to whether or not like my voice was gonna work, at least in the same way, you know.
I think you pulled it off. I didn't notice anything.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
And you guys were announced for a Milwaukee Metal Fest this year. Are you guys trying to kind of get the wheels rolling a little more? Like, what could fans expect in the next year?
We are doing some stuff. So right now it's to a point where we don't want to just drop from the sky and just do these random things without having something new in hand. It was actually kind of crazy to start, like, when we were like looking at it around when we were doing the Decibel show and the Tattoo the Earth last year, and then this other Decibel show out in Denver, where our last album came out in 2009. And it's just crazy to think, like, oh, okay, guys, like, we have, like, it's been a long time. We have to, like, release something new and just show that, we're still capable of writing stuff that's, as good as it was before. And if we can't, then, like, we'll just get out of the way and you won't hear from us anymore. But everything that we're going to do from here on is going to be kind of like with a little bit more of a purpose. Like, if we put out an album on vinyl, and do some shows to move some vinyl and to celebrate some of these albums, like, you'll absolutely, like, I could justify in my head, yeah, cool, we're going to get together, we're going to devote some time and try to, like, launch this off right. But until we get a handle and actually record something with like, John's been our drummer, John Rice has been our drummer for a while now, and we don't have any, like, actual, like, new material with him recorded. So I think it's
so you've been jamming. So I'm here. I'm assessing here that there has been work in the lab potentially.
Yes, there's been work in the lab now since 2009. It's just a matter of us actually. I think everyone's on the same page in terms of, like, wanting to do the stuff, and I think right now more so than ever before, like, I think we're all on the same page that, like, okay, yeah, we should really, either give this a send off with some new material or keep it going again or something, because the shows that we did play, I think we all just kind of missed being creative and we missed each other. Like, I definitely, those are some of my best friends, and I love working with those guys.
And as a fan, I want to say I missed you guys as well. So it was great to see you. And it's very exciting to hear that you guys, it's still it's not a completely dormant project. You guys are still trying to figure stuff out, because I do think the world is ready for more new music from the Red Chord.
Yeah, unfortunately, like, we had planned on trying to move forward and stuff at the end of 22, and life gets in the way. Like, we got a little derailed with some stuff, and next thing you know, where we played our one and only show December of 2023. And it's just like, where did this whole bulk of time go? And I think that's just kind of like been the theme of a lot of stuff lately, is like, as you get older and as you just get, like, more self-absorbed in your profession or your family life or whatever, it's difficult to focus on the things that you like doing from a creative standpoint. Yeah, and I'm hoping that we could actually give Red Chord the priority that I kind of feel like in my head, like, I feel like it deserves.
Cool, man. Well, I will be on the lookout for that. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much for your time and sharing these really fun stories. It's been great to just jam with you about pro wrestling. And
I wish I knew more about it.
Well, maybe we need to watch some. Maybe I need to throw some new stuff in front of you to see what you like.
Who should I be paying attention to right now?
There's a lot of really good wrestling right now. There's a embarrassment of riches. Me personally, I tend to lean more on the AEW stuff, just because I like a faster paced style and, like, the athleticism and stuff. And they have really unique wrestlers. Like, my favorite guy right now is Kenny Omega, but he's injured at the moment. With WWE, it's a lot more talking, but, like, I think WWE is really good right now too. It's like the best it's been in a really long time, just because Vince is out and Triple H is in control, and things are actually organized, and, like, they follow through on things, and there's, like, storylines, like, have a satisfying conclusion. It's crazy. But for me personally, I tend to be drawn more to the AEW style, because it's like lucha and, like, everyone's flying around. They have much more violent stuff, so it's like, it's akin akin more to the late 90s style.
I will say that. So we found a fan in the guy that runs the Instagram page Wrestling Sucks.
Oh
He
yeah,
does,
Steve. Yeah.
yeah. So Steve, so he and I interacted a little bit on Instagram, and we would he'd randomly tag some like Red Chord songs like under some like crazy wrestling move. There was a guy that I came across that I don't know what outfit he's wrestling under, but there was a dude, Sam Stackhouse, heavy set guy. I think he's down in like Oklahoma or something like that. And I just ended up I remember like making some of these little like Red Chord meme things out of like Sam Stackhouse, just doing like, he's this like heavy set, like big dude, and he gets like airborne like for a dude like that. And so shout out to Sam Stackhouse. We had made like a meme or like a reel or something like that out of that. And every once in a while, Wrestling Sucks, like we'll throw our stuff in, and it'll get way more posts than us actually trying to do music stuff. So thank you, Sam Stackhouse.
Nice. Well, big shout out to Sam, and follow the Red Chord. The Red Chord is on social media. The Red Chord Official, I believe, is the handle.
The Red Chord Official. We have a TikTok and
a TikTok as well.
Oh yeah, we have that too. So and even a Facebook. So yeah.
Cool. I'll
Instagram.
include some links in the description so people don't have to go far to find it.
Yeah, when we played that show in Denver, I tried to get creative with the TikTok account. And I said, hey, look, if you follow us, go to our table, follow us, and we'll give you a sticker. And it was funny because locally, I know there was like a bunch of people that like my age that were just like, oh, you got to check out TikTok. It's great. It's great. It's great. And when I said that in Denver, people were like, I'm not downloading that shit. Like, just upset that we had done it. And I was just like, I just follow something.
It's for the kids.
Just have a free sticker. Just have a free sticker. I don't care. But yeah, so we have like no one following us on there, and it's like I remember I said something that like I was like, identify, like channel your inner 14-year-old girl and follow the Red Chord on TikTok, and no, that went over like a fart in church. So
yeah, it sounds like they're more of an Instagram crowd over there.
Yeah, they're like, they're like, follow us on MySpace, and but not even for a free sticker. I mean, maybe we just need like a better promo item or something for it, because like the tens of people on TikTok, thank you for following at the Red Chord Official. Like, but if you don't want to follow us on TikTok, follow us on something else, or don't follow us. Read a book.
Especially now that the podcast is over, you can go read that book. Thank you very much, Guy. And thank you for entering the pit.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.